Well, good. Okay. Okay, I guess I'll go now. Okay. What's up, everyone? My name is Rambling Josh, and I will be playing through Metroid Zero Mission at a reasonably brisk pace for you today. So, this is, of course, the Game Boy Advance remake of the original Metroid game. And I'm one of only a few people dumb enough to play this on the Wii U. Mostly just because it's, in theory, easier to capture than the Game Boy Advance player. Unfortunately, that also means that I have to use the Wii U Pro controller, which is also awful, so we'll see how that goes. So our main objective for the first part of this game is just to open the way up to Torian. We have all these Chozo statues that are going to kind of try and show us the way. We are going to pretty much entirely ignore them. Ultimately, we have to kill both Ridley and Kraid to open up the path to Torian, but before we can do that, we have to run around a little bit and get a bunch of our essential upgrades so that we can actually get around to the different areas that we need to go to. The first little area here, Brinstar, is a little bit interesting just because a lot of these screens we end up going through a whole bunch of times. So they're a little bit different every time we see them. Right now we don't really have any abilities or good ways of getting around, but eventually we'll go through them backwards and with better movement abilities available to us. Grab some missiles. And here we're coming up on the first boss, if you want to call it that. Farm these spines for some missiles. Now we were able to grab that missile pickup on the way out, which is actually going to help quite a lot. We're going to need a lot of missiles coming up here in a minute. So as many as we can have, the better. We also, that boss drops a charge beam upgrade for us after it dies, but we're able to basically not skip it, but we're going to come back for it later. And by doing that, we basically skip his death animation because his hitbox disappears as soon as he dies. This room is really tricky. You're meant to have the long beam upgrade at this point, but we're not going to be getting that, so you have to kind of fudge this room a little bit. Essentially, we're trying to lure these bugs away from the hives. And then, by doing that, we can safely hit the hives with missiles to kill them. We just kind of run around in circles like this. This is a really easy place to lose a run early on, but that went reasonably well. So now we're just kind of on the approach to the bombs upgrade. Another Metroid classic. This screen, for whatever reason, always trips me up going backwards. It's really easy to fall in the lava there. Oops. It's worth noting that the enemies, like these gamers here, that just kind of walk in a static path, what direction they're going is actually randomized when you enter the room. So a lot of these rooms are a little bit different every time you play the game. So you have to kind of learn how to just adjust to their patterns and just kind of go with it. Okay, and now that we got the morph bombs, we can just make our way back to where we fought the worm boss earlier. First we have to bomb these little bugs, who can be really annoying. Sometimes they like to take forever falling out of that little ceiling area there, and that can be a really big pain. There's nothing you can do about it, you just have to take the RNG where you'll get it. So we more or less have all the items that we need out of Brinstar here, so once we go back to pick up the charge beam that the worm boss dropped, we are on our way to Norfair. I think that's the last time we'll see that little side area. And here we finally get the charge beam that we left behind so long ago. The charge beam is kind of it's just a nice thing to have. It doesn't really save a lot of time. You lose a little bit of time just by picking it up, but it kind of ends up being like equal. So ultimately, kind of the end result is that it's just kind of safer to get it. One thing it does is you get this ability to do these pseudo screw attacks where you can charge up your beam and just do a spin jump and you can damage through enemies, but your beam is actually really weak in this game. It only does 1 damage, and we're skipping basically all of the beam upgrades in the game. So even if we'd gotten the long beam, it'd be at least doing 2 damage, and then the charge beam would double that to 4, but because the beam does such a small amount of damage, charging up doesn't do a lot for you. But there are some areas where it's definitely useful, like this area in particular. It's kind of interesting playing through this game without the long beam, just because it doesn't make it a whole lot harder for the most part. It's more like you just have to make do with what you have a lot more. Oops. So in particular, missiles become a lot more useful, which is kind of fun, just because blowing stuff up with missiles is fun. So this is Criteria, and this is a little bit of a sequence break there. You're not necessarily meant to get up here until you have, I guess, the high jump boots, but we did a little wall jump there that lets us get in here a little bit early. It's not a big deal, but it's kind of neat. Just this game is really good at kind of accommodating whatever order you want to do things in for the most part. Here we get the unknown item, which doesn't do a whole lot for us right now. It mostly just lets us destroy these blocks, but it will come in handy later. Climb our way up here. And the power grip. This thing's kind of neat just because it lets you grab onto ledges. In general, ledge grabs are not as useful in the speedrun as in kind of casual play. Dang. Wall jumping not agreeing with me today, so we're just going to climb up here. Ideally, you want to get up that by either wall jumping up or by bomb jumping up, but sometimes it's just not in the cards. The Wii U Pro controller is actually, like I said, really bad for this game. It really likes giving you up or down inputs when you're pressing right or left, which will break you out of wall jumps or your morph ball form. So you have to be really precise to even do just normal wall jumps if you're using the Pro controller. Which, like I said, I'm not the smartest speedrunner ever. One thing ledge grabbing does let us do, though, is there's these little 1-tile tall tunnels that you can climb up to if they're next to a ledge. That you can't do that without the power grip, so it's nice to be able to do the things that the game needs you to do to get through the game. For the most part, we're done with grabbing just kind of the main upgrades. And we are making our way over to Ridley's Lair. There's one more upgrade directly on our path before we get there, though. So, and here we get the Ice Beam, which is reasonably useful. You need it for the end of the game, but until then it doesn't do a whole lot for us. But we do want to take this refill, mostly because we want missiles. We're going to need a lot of missiles for another room coming up. It's possible to skip it if you're lucky with your missile drops and your missile management is really good up until this point, but there we go. Skipping over that Chozo statue, it doesn't look like much, but it's actually pretty important. It's not hard to do, but if you end up accidentally activating that statue, the cutscene that you get is actually pretty long. So it's basically a reset if you were to be going for PB attempts. And there's just kind of a hidden shortcut here that takes us into a back route into Ridley's Lair, just kind of falling all the way down here. All the way down. I'm gonna try and go a little bit slow through this room just to be sure to pick up all the missile upgrade or the missile drops, just because I definitely want a really healthy missile count. Because here we have another boss. The idea with this guy is he's got 6 vines connecting him to the ceiling. And you have to destroy all of the vines to make him fall down and die. Each vine takes 3 missiles to kill. Oops. Not too bad. You can do that fight a lot faster if you are able to do some really precise wall jumps up the side of the wall to hit the vines, but it's pretty tricky even with a controller that like actually works. So we just take the nice and slow and consistent strategy. It's not even necessarily that slow, it's just every little bit counts in a speedrun, so. But anyways, we are now in Ridley's Lair. This place can be pretty dangerous. There's a lot of places where you can pretty easily lose a lot of time if you're not careful. And because of that, we want to make sure we have a decent amount of missiles. Just forgot how to bomb jump there for a second. Don't worry about it. This is technically the route out of Ridley's Lair, but with a bit of a wall or a bomb jump there, we're able to go out the exit, or in the exit rather, just fine. And the first kind of dangerous room in this area is coming up right in here. This room just has like a lot of stuff in it, and it's really hard to kind of go fast, but also safe. Oops. So a lot of times you have to kind of just find a balance between the two. We came out of there with a lot of health though, so that's not too bad. This room, ideally you just want to wall jump off the middle pillar here, but if you fall down, you lose a ton of time, so usually it's better to just kind of wait for those little, whatever you want to call them, to get into place and use them as a safe little platform. Here we get our first super missiles. We're going to get another pack of those real soon, actually. Our health's real healthy, so we're just going to damage boost through that guy. Oh, super missile drop. Don't think I've ever seen one of those there before. So super missiles, if you're playing this game casually, they can tend to be a little bit hard to come by. There's not a lot of them in this game, and a lot of them are kind of hard to find. But there's just 2 of them right here that are just in quick succession and just right there if you know that they're there. So it's really convenient to just grab them. And those are going to be the only super missiles that we're going to get for most of the game. And they're going to be pretty important coming up because they do a ton of damage, and that is something that we want when we are trying to kill things. So here we get another unknown item. And with that, we can come back here and pick up another energy tank. We pick up the energy tank before taking the refill at the statue, just because the refill at the statue refills your resources by like counting up. So the energy tank just is like a very small time save because it fills up your energy automatically. So that was Ridley. Not especially difficult or challenging, though that's just two words for the same thing, but you get the idea. You're basically just throwing missiles into his body. Nice, 2 super drops. That's what we want to see from him. The main danger with Ridley is he starts off the fight shooting fireballs out of his mouth, and you want to make sure that your super missiles don't hit his fireballs, otherwise you're wasting damage. And we only barely have, like, I want to say something on the order of 10 missiles to spare to actually take him out with. So if you miss even a couple of super missiles, then you run the risk of having to finish him off with charge attacks, which do basically no damage and is just very, very slow. Oops. And now we are just making our way out of Ridley's Lair the way that we came in. Which is the way that you're supposed to go out, but not the way that you're supposed to go in, so, you know. If we had less than 4 super missiles, these little owl things are really good to farm for supers. They drop them really consistently, but Ridley was kind to us today. Just get a couple of missiles from these bugs, because we are now on our way to Kraid's Lair. And we're going to need a fair amount of missiles there. 24 is like a little excessive, but I'd much rather err on the side of caution. Oops. I'm not really sure what they were thinking with these little cannon things, but they're kind of cool. It's neat that they let you break Shine Spark blocks before giving you the speed booster, just to kind of hint at the fact that this is a mechanic that will exist eventually. And we're just picking up all kinds of upgrades on the way out of here, which is pretty convenient for the route. And here we get the high jump. It's technically not an item that we ever need for anything, but being able to get up certain jumps is, needless to say, very handy. But also, later in the game when we get the space jump, like, pretty frequently your goal with the space jump is just to get up as high as possible as soon as you can. And the high jump boots actually affect your space jump height as well, so it can save you a surprising amount of time just in doing space jumps as well. So that's kind of nice. We're just making our way back through. I guess this is Norfair. These guys can be a pain. It's possible to get up there just in a single jump without freezing either of them, but it's like very unlikely to happen, so you might as well just freeze one. So just coming through this room that we've seen multiple times already. It's a little bit different now that we have high jump and charge beam, though. One thing to note is that I will be getting a bunch of safety E-tanks in this run. The amount of health that you pick up is actually, like, you have a lot of control over basically how difficult you want to make the game for yourself. Every E-tank that you pick up is you're sacrificing speed to do it, but you don't technically need more than, like, one. The world record run of this game only gets one E-tank, and is kind of insane. But in general, you'll see a lot of runners picking up 3. The E-tank that I got just now, it's directly in the route, so it's like I might as well grab it. And that is our 4th. Okay, so this is Kraid's Lair. The main gimmick of this area is a lot of these rooms have electrical ziplines in them, but the power is currently turned off. So we're gonna make it not be off anymore. Technically, it's not something that you have to do. It is possible to skip doing that, and it saves a little over 2 minutes, I believe. But it requires doing a really tricky, like very precise jump that's really hard to become consistent with, so I will not be doing it. And I don't necessarily mind too much, because I kind of think that some of these rooms that we're doing right now that you wouldn't normally see in a speedrun are actually kind of cool, so I don't mind showing them off. Oh, we missed the bomb. So this here is what turns the power back on. So now we can use zip lines. This is a zip line. And that is our 5th and last energy tank. Now the main reason that you want to skip coming through here is, maybe not the main one, it's a lot of rooms to go through, but there's also an extra boss here called the Acid Worm. And this guy likes to do this ability where he'll sit in the lava and just raise the lava at you. And it's really slow, but if you manage your missiles such that you end off with the super missiles, you basically just damage him out of the phase where he can use his lava attack before he even gets a chance to use it. So that's just kind of a clever use of resources to get past the worst thing that boss can do to you. Saves, I want to say that, just at a guess, every time he does the lava is probably like 8 to 10 seconds. So we're just about at the bit of Kraid's Lair that you would normally see in a speedrun. That whole side area is what the Acid Worm skips. But here we are now doing the normal stuff. So what the Acid Skip Worm actually is, there's these blocks here, and off of that last block, you're able to do a super precise bomb jump that you'll actually be able to get across that gap. But if you fail it, you destroy the block, so you essentially only have one shot at it, which is a part of what makes it so difficult. Get out of here. Okay. And here is our 3rd and last unknown item, which again doesn't do much for us yet, but we need it to blow up the blocks that lead to the boss. And because we use our super missiles on the Acid Worm, we have to take this refill here, because it's pretty important for us to have at least 3 super missiles right now. Hopefully this room goes well. Not great. Killing those little side hoppers while you're still like running full speed is pretty satisfying, but I only got 2 out of 5, so. Okay. Make sure we have super missiles equipped, because here is Kraid. So that was Kraid. Not especially difficult if you know how to do the quick kill, which basically just means shoot 3 super missiles at him very quickly. If you do miss the quick kill, it's kind of a big deal because this fight is a pretty big slog if you have to do it normally. So I guess we should just be thankful that the quick kill is so easy. We get the speed booster, which is every speedrunner's best friend. There's some pretty fun shine sparks in this game, so I'm gonna try and go for as many of them as I can. If you remember the escape from Kraid's Lair in the original Metroid game, this shine spark might make you a little bit upset. Now, as far as getting out of Kraid's Lair, the fastest way for us to do it is to use the zip line, because I went through all the effort of turning it on. But there's also a shine spark you can do to get out of here, and it looks pretty cool. So I'm just going to do this instead. And that's basically it for Kraid's Lair. So now both Ridley and Kraid are dead, so the path to Torian is technically open. So that's where we're headed next. Our immediate goal on the way to Torian, though, at least once we... Really? Get out of here, bugs. Once we hit our first Chozo statue and get a refill, our goal is to try not to take any damage. Torian is a very difficult part of the speedrun. It requires some very tight resource management to go fast. So as much as possible, we want to prevent ourselves from taking damage before we get there, or once we're there as well. Damage is a bad thing. But it's because the way the drops work in this game is that the game will look at what resources you have when it decides what it wants to try and give you. So if you're missing health, that's the only time the game is going to try and give you health drops. But if we aren't missing health, then it's going to give us basically all missiles, which is what we want. Chances are it will not work out quite that way, but we'll do what we can. There's another little shine spark here. That one saves barely any time, but if you can do a shine spark that saves time, why would you not do it? Oops. Okay. And this is the entrance to Torian. So the idea here is that there's a whole ton of Metroids that you have to kill, and then after that you have to kill Mother Brain. And so all of those things take a lot of missiles to do. Each Metroid takes 5 missiles to kill and has 2 drops. So ideally, if you're at full health, every Metroid you kill, you're basically losing only 1 missile. And that will minimize the amount of farming that you have to do before Mother Brain. We shouldn't need it, but because this place is so dangerous, we're just going to do a quick safety save. You'll notice lots of dead things in the hallway here. Part of what makes this area so tough is just the fact that the Metroids themselves are kind of tricky. How long it takes their spawn animation is actually randomized. And their hitboxes are actually really weird as well. If for no other reason than because their hitbox actually gets smaller after they're frozen. So there's just a lot of really weird, they have a lot of weird properties that make killing them quickly just really annoying. Just gonna forget that missile drop. Ideally you want to try and use your super missiles wisely here, just because a super will kill a Metroid in one shot. So you can use them to kind of keep your missile count high. And if you're lucky and you get a decent amount of super missile drops, then it can really work out in your favor. We haven't really gotten much as far as super drops, except for that one just now. But on the whole, we're doing pretty good on missile count so far. Not to jinx it or anything. super drop. Nice. Okay, so we got through Torian without being grabbed by Metroid at all, so that's really good. We took a little bit of damage from Rinkas and from lava, I guess, but on the whole, that's about as good as you can hope for it to go. So we don't have to do a whole lot of farming right now. Right now, we have to kill... There's a whole bunch of these Zebatites that we have to missile through. Each Zebatite takes 7 missiles to kill. But if you don't shoot them in quick enough succession, then the Zebatite will start to regenerate. So it's important to have enough missiles going in. So we killed all the Zebatites, and we're just going to go back real quick to farm up the amount of missiles that we need to actually fight Mother Brain. These green Rinkas are a good place to farm, just because the green Rinkas are guaranteed to have a drop. The red ones can drop stuff too, but they're just kind of there. We just kill them because they're in our face, more or less. And this is where it's really easy to bleed time in that room doing that farm, which is why managing your resources through this section is so important. Because you want that farm to be as short as possible, especially because if you have a long farm, it probably means that you made a lot of mistakes leading up to it. Okay. So 20 missiles to break the tank. And there's just this one little tile that you can stand on here. So we use that to our advantage. Okay. Oh, I miscounted my missiles. It's not a big deal. Okay. So, if we're running up against Mother's Brain's body as she dies, for whatever reason, the game lets us charge up a Shine Spark while we're doing that, which is very weird, but whatever, thank you. So we have a Shine Spark that we can do up that shaft that allows us to skip, I'd guess, probably about a third of it. So that's pretty handy. It makes this escape that is not threatening in the first place just a little bit easier, or a little bit faster, I should say. A classic Metroid escape. Okay. So that's kind of the first, I guess you could call it the first half of the game. That's where the original Metroid would have ended, but there's a whole kind of added section that they added for Zero Mission that's a little bit contentious. It's basically like a pseudo-stealth section, which some people are not a big fan of. Personally, it's my favorite part of the game, just because it's pretty much entirely movement, and if you do it well, then it's just really... It's just really fun to do. Let's not do that. So the idea here is that Samus is escaping and she gets shot down. And so that leaves her stranded on the surface of the planet, and she's kind of defenseless. Her suit has stopped working for whatever reason. And yeah, that's what leads us into the stealth section. The only weapon that we have for this section of the game is Samus has her little paralyzer gun, which doesn't do any damage, but if you have a full charge, then it can stun enemies. So you don't have any way of actually fighting at this point. All you can do is run and stun things. There's a little cutscene here that is longer, or shorter rather, than I think it is 100% of the time. You would think with a cutscene you have like a second to take a drink or something, but it's really short. There's a really small skip there, skipping the map. And the save points in this section of the game allow you to restore to full health. which is handy because you don't have any other way of restoring your health for the rest of the game. So being careful becomes pretty important. And we just took another safety save there. So stunning that pirate where we did allows us to sit here and... Oh, I guess it didn't work. Okay. Ideally, you can wait for the alarm to turn off on the previous room instead of having to sit here, but it didn't work for whatever reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's not a big deal. But that's kind of the idea of this area. If you get seen, then the alarms will trip, and you don't want that to happen. That jump off that wall jump above that laser is actually really hard. So I'm glad that I got that. Part of what makes this area so hard is just the fact that to do it well requires a lot of wall jumps, and doing a lot of them without screwing any of them up is difficult. Especially if you remember me complaining about my controller earlier. Or more particularly, just the Wii U Pro controller in general. There's also a lot of like hidden shortcuts and stuff in this area that makes it pretty fun. This is one of them. It cuts out a pretty decent amount of the area. So there's these little searchlights in this area. We have to wait here for these searchlights to pass. It's actually technically possible to get past those without having to wait. It's a trick called fast searchlights. But it's very tricky and it doesn't save a lot of time. So in general, a lot of people just don't even bother going for it. And for me, it's like it's not even worth considering. Shoot. So the main reason tripping that alarm is a problem is because in this particular section, the pirates really get in your way if they're on your tail. So there we just waited a second so that we could go into this room with a full paralyzer charge, so that we could turn around and shoot the pirate that was going to follow us, so that we could safely make that wall jump into another kind of secret passageway. Beyond that, though, the alarm pretty much turns off immediately, so there's no real danger. That one space pirate there, it's basically random whether or not he sounds the alarm on you. But if you shoot him with your paralyzer with a little diagonal shot, then for whatever reason, him getting shot means that he will not notice you. I'm not sure how that AI works, but I'm thankful for it. Okay. Nice. We took the fast way through that room and also... Well, okay, not the fastest way, but a fast way through that room, and also did not trigger the alarm. That's good because in this room that we're going through right there, there's the one section that lags pretty badly if you have extra space pirates in the screen. And if you have the alarm going, then the only way to really prevent the lag is if you turn around and stun one of them. Which is not a big deal to do, but it's nice to not have to worry about it. There's a fake power bomb up there. It's actually not even possible to collect it. Even if you were to hack your way into that room, the power bomb is just a graphic. It's just not actually there. We took a quick detour into the save room there. It just immediately turns off the alarm. We're going to purposely trip the alarm here. Pause for a second. Okay. There's some very precise timing on where you go to stun people on this room. Otherwise, pirates are all up in your face. The hardest bit of this section is coming up. There's one room in particular where if you fall, you're more or less just dead. It's possible to get through it without dying, but it's basically just down to luck. And that's in this screen here. So we're just gonna take it slow and jump from block to block rather than trying to wall jump up here. There's like 3 or 4 pirates on your tail there, so if you were to fall, they just kind of swarm you, and since you can only stun one of them at a time, you just kind of... you're in some trouble. Okay, so that's basically the end of the suitless section. We did really well through there, actually. That save is probably unnecessary because we're at full health, but you never know. We have this boss coming up here. The Zero Mission community calls this guy Charlie. I'm not entirely sure why, I have to admit. My assumption is someone one day was like, we should give the boss a name, and someone else was like, how about Charlie? And then they were like, yeah, okay. This is basically just a big ghost guy, and it can... this guy has a lot of ability to troll you, which is why we took that save. It's also possible that we'll get through this without taking any damage at all, but it's just a really big... like, who knows how it's going to go. I for sure don't. So we fight this as Zero Suit Samus. The idea here is this little thing will shine with an insignia. And we have to shoot it with a fully charged paralyzer beam, and we have to do that 4 times. Now that this ghost guy is out, he's going to try and shoot lightning bolts at us. They'll appear over our head, but only if we ever stop moving. So we try to not do that. We just continually move for as much as we can. Which makes this fight kind of difficult because the amount of time you have to hit the insignia before it disappears is actually pretty small. But we got really lucky, and that was basically a perfect fight. So, hooray! That is the end of Suitless. So now we got our suit back. And not only that, but the 3 unknown items that we picked up along the way all turn into items that we can now use. Namely, we get Plasma Beam, we get Gravity Suit, and we get the Space Jump ability. That being said, despite having all of those things, we're still very underpowered for this point in the game. We're meant to have a lot more upgrades, so we have to be pretty careful on our way through the end of the game here. In particular, pirates, there's a lot of them. Come on, die. Thank you. And they don't have any drops, so we don't have any ability to restore our health or missiles. There's just straight up no way to refill our missiles. The only way to refill our health is with save points, and ideally we don't want to use those just because they take time, and we're trying to go fast. So pirates can be very dangerous just because we don't have wave beam, we don't have what's it called? We don't have long beam. We just have this little pea shooter, and we have ice. This is another area where charge beam can be kind of helpful, just because your normal beam will kill pirates in 2 shots. The first shot freezes them, the second shot kills them. But a charge shot will just kill them in 1 go. So there's some areas where that's pretty handy. By building up a Shine Spark charge here, we can instantly destroy that 1 block, so that's kind of cool. This part of the game is kind of fun just because it's kind of a mad dash towards the end at this point. So if you know the rooms, then it's just a matter of, like, you could just go through them so quickly. And we have another nice little Shine Spark. This one's fun just because it's vertical and you get this cool little spinning animation. This pirate is nice enough to destroy those bomb blocks for us. And that guy's nice enough to let us use his head as a platform. There's a lot of stuff going on in this room, so getting through there without getting hit can be pretty tricky. And this is another area where if you're playing this casually, the game kind of expects you to go and get the power bombs. But getting power bombs takes a really long time. So thankfully, they also provide you a lot of shortcuts like the one we took in the previous room, where you can just completely avoid using the power bombs at all. So it's nice that those are there for us. This room's kind of interesting just because if you do charge up your beam here, it's pretty likely that it will lag the game a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why. I guess just because this is a really big room. So we're getting close to the end of this section. This bit's kind of cool just because these tunnels alternate between bomb blocks and just normal crumble blocks. So you can do this thing where you like bomb a block and then quickly shoot out the next one to save a little bit of time. It's pretty insignificant, but it's fun. I don't understand this room at all. It's just a mess every time. Every time. I don't know. Usually that one guy doesn't go up there, so I'm not sure what he's doing. Oh, despawning is what he's doing, apparently. Okay. I'm okay with this. Okay, so normally I would just go with this amount of health and just rock it, but it is a marathon, so we'll duck into the side room and take a health refill and a safety save. There shouldn't be any reason for us to need the health, but it's better to be safe than sorry. I always forget that guy spawns there, but that's okay. He's dead now. Unfortunately, we don't have to worry about waiting for that thing if we, that barrier, if we skip the safety save, so that's just kind of a small downside to taking the save. Okay. So now we are coming up on the final boss. As we slowly wait for Mecha Ridley to meander his way into the room. Hit me. Thank you. So that was Mecha Ridley. He's actually kind of difficult if you don't just immediately kill him with 6 super missiles to the chest. But since we did kill him with 6 super missiles to the chest, he didn't really have a chance to do much. Interesting thing about him is that I believe his stats triple if you have 100% item find in this game. If you found everything, then he becomes a lot harder. But since we didn't do that, then he's kind of easy. Although he's a little bit of a different story on low percent. So now we just have escape section number 2. This one is about as threatening as the last one. And also, thankfully, it's our way out of this area is a lot faster than our way into it was. Hello? Oh, there's no more guys. I don't know. This room is an enigma to me. here we have hopefully a really cool trick that hopefully will go well. Shoot that block out. Oh man, I got the short charge on the Shine Spark, but I got hit, so I got knocked out of it. Okay, let's do this. No, I messed it up. That's unfortunate. Ideally what you do there is there's you can do a ball spark at the end there that basically skips past this entire room as well as the next one. It saves something on the order of like 20-30 seconds. I'm actually really sad that I missed it, but that's okay. Everything else in this run has gone pretty well, so I'm not going to complain too much. Plus that means that we get to kill this guy in the tunnel with bombs, and that always brings me a lot of satisfaction for probably sociopathic reasons. There's these two black pirates here who are not supposed to climb up there. And they're very dangerous, so we are going to reset and try it again. Just wait for them to climb up. There we go. That's what's supposed to happen. They just don't really know what to do when you're standing on this corner, so they... Okay, well, we can deal with one of them. Open up. And... time. Time? Time. There we go. Time.